Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We will then start this session. I would like to, first of all, say that to the organizing committee, to express my thanks, but also asking now the staff to help also get the people in the room because they have maybe an extended coffee break. So if they could help us, that would be very much appreciated. So I like to, as I said, to thank all the organizers for this conference. We have had yesterday, part of this morning, very interesting debates. I think that we have taken good notes of what has been discussed, of all the different inputs. And it is time now to get closely to the wrap-up of this stakeholders conference, the third one, after Dublin. So definitely there will be a lot to bring back home. And we will have, in this hour, the chance to hear through questions that I will try to ask to the panelists, that they, in a way, represent different stakeholders. So we will have the stakeholders' view, and we put the title From Dublin in terms of saying last year we had this conference in Dublin, this year in Turin, so from Dublin to Turin. And beyond, because we need to look, not again, just simply say, well, shall we have another next year, but, what can we take stock and think beyond, of today's meeting. I also would like to thank the future incoming Latvian presidency. The minister is also here with us, and I also like to show my appreciation, and she will be in the final and closing panel. So, as I said, from Dublin to Turin, just let me recall a few of the key aspects that we discussed and were also put in the conclusions in Dublin. We definitely had underlined the aspects of food security. I think that food security has come strongly in also as an aspect in this conference. We also had the time and the, let's say, willingness to put forward the need for skills, to look at skills, to make sure that, appropriate skills would be, in a way, put in place for the support of the bioeconomy sectors. We also had a look at the diversity of the sectors working, along the different value chains, the flexibility in terms of adapting new business models, and also at the way we would engage society. This is, again, another aspect which has been mentioned also at the very beginning of this conference by the Spanish Secretary of State, Mrs. Vela. Where in one of her slides was clearly saying we need to engage at first the society. As I said, these are clearly engagements on new business models. Innovation is also finding the way to look at new business models, not only basically on products. We know that we have this very light divide between production of goods and services. So how do we work along these aspects here? And this session, without taking too much further time, will be built around questions that I will ask to the panelists, and they will reply, but also interacting with you all. So first of all, I will ask to the panelists their point of view of their organization and how do they see the bioeconomy. Second, I will see also how the panelists and the representativeness that they have, how do they see the future actions that will be taken in this field. And thirdly, if any new ideas in this day and a half of meeting have come, I'm sure, to all your minds, and maybe we can put those ideas and look at them and see how we could definitely develop them. Let me also introduce the participants. I have Mayra Delske-Kalei. I hope I've allowed me to say, I'm not good in languages. Gianluca Carenzo from Europa Bio and Asso Biotech. Mikael Narodoslavski from the European University Association, and it's the EU platform on university. Engage in Energy Research. Harald Wiedendorfer, European Federation of Food, Agriculture and Tourism Trade Unions, and Mads Wolf from the Nordic Council. So, as I said, I would start with you, Mara, with the first question, the point of view of your organization and what is the, let's say, one of the single most important action to be taken from the different views and angles of the bioeconomy. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. From the perspective of farmers, forest holders and their cooperatives, which I'm representing, we consider that most important action that has need to be taken, it's unlocking the opportunities and the full potential of sustainable biomass supply for bio-based products without endangering food production. This food security, it is a first priority. And we believe that it's possible to maintain the food security and in the same time have possibility to develop bioeconomy. And there we must find the solutions, and we must have a more discussion, open discussion with society and better understanding of these things. Because worst is that that if local society is not understanding and they are against, and that's not helping develop this sector. These actions which could unlock the opportunities should include the instruments that we have. We have the rural development programs, and it is important that every country use as much as possible from the rural development programs to help bioeconomy sector to develop. And what we need, how the rural development programs could help, it is through the investment support, investments which could improve harvest process, mobilization techniques, also appropriate storages for bio and co-products. It's also the specific measures on knowledge transfer, which could be supported under the rural development, an advisory service, because we must increase productivity, both in primary production of food and also biomass, and there we have good potential. And big thing is also it's the implementation of research and innovation projects that are attractive for small and medium-sized business and are user and solution orientated. And there we have European instruments, and we must use these instruments to develop research and also innovations, because it is important that small and medium business have the possibilities to invest in this area. And last thing, which is important, it's fair share of benefits along the value chain. And there it is important to develop for the industry products, valuable products, and sell them with the best price, and in the end to share the profit in all value chain. we farming sector, we see that it's also in the food sector, not always the fair distribution of the profit. And if in the bioeconomy the same will happen, then probably our sector will be not ready to invest in these technologies. And like I heard just in previous section also from Polish researchers that at this moment the prices for bioproducts, products for bioeconomy, it's between 30 and 50% less than for food. In such situation, the farming and forestry sector will not be ready to supply the products. And if we will solve these problems, and if the cost of the products be high enough, then our sector will always be ready to invest and ready to supply the resources.
Thank you, and I would like now to ask Gianluca Carenzo to give us, the views of Europa Bio and AssoBiotech on this question. So, what is the single most important action that would be taken from the different bioeconomy sectors to prosper?
So, thank you. Let me introduce myself. I'm representing AssoBiotech and Europa Bio. AssoBiotech is an association of companies and science parks working in Italy in the field of biotechnology since 1986, or more or less more than 150 members today. And so the issue of bioeconomy is very important, and we are representing a technology association which is mainly based on technology, biotech. So industrial biotechnology is one of the core of bioeconomy. And I also have some personal matter on that because my family is producing rice in this region, especially since 120 years. So I can also have the both sides of the. But the question is that in biotechnology, so the competition now is the global level. So we have to compete with systems that are in the United States, in South America, so Brazil, Chile, and in the Middle East and Asia. So the question is. The problem is that at the moment we know that Europe is becoming less and less attractive for biotech investments. So this is one point. And because we have different problems like high energy cost, the problem that the regulatory approach is less predictable and less science-based. And of course there is a lack of funding in Europe, especially for tailored market pull measures. So on that we have three main pillars. Could be research and development, so how to foster research and development projects. So we have Horizon 2020, that will be more translational in the sense that the end of a project could be not another project, but results that could become products. So this is the first issue. The second one is the assessment and approval phase. So when we deal with people coming from United States, with the problem that we need to testify the certain of the right. Okay, in Italian is certezza del diritto. That's the problem. Is we cannot have environments that could talk about retroactivity, especially in legislation. So the case of energy and what happened was really a problem to justify to people that are making investments that allow is becoming retroactivity. So you cannot. Justify your business plans, okay? And the third one is the market access point. Especially, we could now take some experimentation in public procurement. I mean, bio-based products could be really one of the products that European legislation and the state member legislation could test with even innovation in business models, as Antonio Giulio said, for public procurement.
Thank you. And I have Michael line next.
Okay. This has been a wonderful conference, so I'm a little bit afraid to spoil the party. So I start with the good news. I had the section about bioenergy in the set plan roadmap for education. and we estimated what comes out in terms of jobs in the next few years, and we came up with the idea that there are 1 million jobs just in bioenergy, including the pre-chain of bioenergy, 1 million new qualified jobs, 100,000 master degree academics until 2020, from 2012 to 2020. Almost the same amount, a little bit more even, because we have to think about replacement, from 2030 to 2020 to 2030. So 2 million jobs, qualified jobs in bioenergy, 100,000 academics. That's the good news. The bad news, we won't have the institutions to educate them. So make no mistake. Bioeconomy is not a European invention. It's certainly not a European monopoly. And the decisive fact of succeeding in a global market will be the workforce, the quality of the workforce. And so we have to think about educating this workforce. And if you look at the institutional setup in Europe at the moment, now I'm coming from a university association, so I'm a little bit speaking against my trade. What we find is that we have a disciplinary siloed, horizontally siloed situation. And looking at the whole educational system, we have a heavily stratified, vertically stratified system in different levels of education. And that is certainly not the way to educate people for bioeconomy, which is interdisciplinary, which is inclusive, which is holistic. Okay, so we have to do something. We have to change, and we have to change rapidly, because we are not anymore there that we are starting in niches. We are here for a major shift in the economic setup of Europe. And that means that we have quite a volume to educate in terms of new workforce. So we have to harass everything from massive online open access course systems to corporations in this fragmented situation of European educational systems in order to get the education right for a bioeconomy. So the single most important step forward is to get our bottoms up and do something about education. Thank you.
Sorry, thanks. But we will get questions after we have had the panel discussion. So if you please hold your questions, and we will make sure take our questions. So I would ask Harald now to give us his view.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm afraid that I'm one of the very few non-experts in this group here, because for me it's the first time ever that I'm attending one of your conferences on bioeconomy. I do have to apologize for that. But I think it's important for you to know as well that we as trade union, and I'm representing 120 trade unions in the whole food chain from farm to fork, are very much appreciating your work, because we are aware that we need an innovative and sustainable bioeconomy, that this is very important for the competitiveness of the European economy, for growth and jobs, and for the survival of the whole planet as well. And if we raise the question, what is the biggest challenge? So then it's, and I think we do agree, is food security. And as far as this is concerned, we are a bit worried because of the competition between food and fuel, even if we are on a track to a second generation of bioethanol. But I think we always have to be aware that food is not a commodity like any others, that food is really a basic human rights. But I want to raise a point which is really a concern, particularly from our trade union point of view. I think everybody can agree that sustainability has to cover the three pillars: economic, social, environmental. But what we are witnessing as trade union is so that quite often, while the environmental point or aspect and the economic aspect are dealt with, but the social aspect is skipped and ignored. And I think this is also what we are witnessing in European policies. There were a lot of European policy or conferences of the European Union dealing with sustainability, but not dealing with the social aspect. Or if we look at the European Common Agricultural Policy, well, the farmers are expected to meet environmental standards in order to get reimbursed, to get European subsidies, but it is not expected that they have to meet social standards as well. We have since more than 10 years green guidelines on public procurement on European level, and since recently only also social guidelines on public procurement. And if we look at companies, we have a lot of companies which really are selling ecologically and environmentally friendly certified products, but they do not even meet social minimum standards. So, and this is really a big challenge for us. So that if we talk about sustainability, we really have to consider a holistic approach. So, and if we really want to get from the concept to reality, which is the slogan of this Congress, so then we have to consider more the social aspect. And this is also important not only to respect workers, employees as human beings, but also because the sustainable and innovative bioeconomy needs enough qualified staff with new skills. And what we are witnessing is, and this is the outcome also of several research studies and a recommendation of the European Agro-Food High-Level Group, is that we have a lack of qualified staff. So the sector is not attractive enough for qualified staff. So, and this is one of the big challenges we are facing.
Thank you, very clear. Now we have the last panelist.
Thank you. Like Harald, I'm not an expert either. I'm a bureaucrat. Although I think I consider myself to be a modern bureaucrat, which means that I have the capacity to navigate in chaos. So I'm a kind of a chaos pilot. And therefore you have to excuse me, I'll take you up in the helicopter perspective and come with some fluffy comments. I think that the most important action to be taken for the different bioeconomy sectors would be to acknowledge that the bioeconomy must be seen from a holistic approach. Bioeconomy is often seen too simple, as Lene Lange explained us earlier today, that just a simple one-to-one substitution leading to sub-optimizing measures and does not lead to what we need. Or it is seen on the other way as too complex, which often leads to inaction and nothing happens. So that's the background, that's a challenge we're all facing. But if we acknowledge that we must see the bioeconomy from a holistic approach, that it gives us other opportunities. And therefore we need to find the proper level of understandings and actions, which I believe must start with a common understanding that the bioeconomy transformation is first of all a societal transformation. And we must insist on building up a new development around the local, rural or coastal economy. And therefore I think we should introduce the concept of the OECD around the new rural paradigm. I think that the bioeconomy helps it to realize the new rural paradigm. I don't know if most of you are probably not aware of it, but it simply says that we need to move away from the old paradigm, which is a compensation paradigm. We compensate for the loss of economy, jobs, and so on in the local economy. We need to invest in the local economy, and that is what the bioeconomy can do. And therefore, also, I very much agree with the words of Maria, focusing on the rural development programs. We need to take that step, and we need to upgrade the rural development programs in order to be able to make investments in the local bioeconomy. So that would more or less be my answer for this first question.
Thank you. I think in already this first tour, you have in a way given partially, I would say, some answers also to the second question, which, in a way says which actor should take action. I mean, you have already esquissé some of the actors that should be more prominent. But I would invite you to be, more to the point and tell us a little bit also on any recommendable action that you would see immediately ready at this stage when you talk about skills. I see immediately a contradiction. I mean, this is, a research and development based action, which has the skills. So, but I also hear that we don't have skills. So, what kind of recommendation at this stage? I will start again with you, Myra, please.
Yeah, from our point, the first actions which is recommended, it's first it's on the policy level, and we think that it's more policy coordination is needed at European and national level to ensure coherence between various objectives targeted agriculture and forest biomass production, and facilitate to access to the new market. It's one thing, and another thing it's also this active support from research and industry to develop new bio-based products. And one thing which we definitely not need from our point of view, it's the development of new specific standards for sustainability of biomass production to be used in bio-based production. We in agriculture sector, we have sustainable production standards which ensuring the cross-compliance, and it's since 2003. And in the forestry, we have a sustainable forest management concept from 1998. And if the new standards for biomass production for bio-based products could come, these standards would add additional bureaucratic border. And last thing which don't need, it's and it's related a little bit with policy. We don't need over-subsidizing of the sector, which disturb the normal competition between the sectors and create negative opinion about sector. We had in past, we have some examples of over-subsidizing in some of the regions of biodiesel or biogas production, and it's making it's disturbing the competition between the food and energy supply, and it's creating the negative attitude of society. Like I said at the beginning, it's really important to have positive attitude from the society, and when the policy is designed, it's important to have the instruments like some initiatives, subsidies, support to push a little bit industry, but it is important to not over-subsidize that. Action which is needed at this moment, once more, it's awareness rising in society. And I think that the best, it's through the good examples, through the success stories, and it will help to get public acceptance of the sector.
Thank you. Gianluca Carenzo, then.
Thank you. Start from an action that is already in action, that you probably know that this week is the so-called European Biotech Week. So in all of Europe and there are several events that are talking about biotechnology and bioeconomy, of course. In Italy, in more than 30 cities and more than probably 50 events are taking place in this week. 2 days ago, we had an event here in Torino, a side event of this convention that was called Startupping in the Bioeconomy. So, and in that, we try to raise the one of the issues regarding the actors of innovation, which are startups, so technology startups in this field, and with different results of the conference regarding especially the role of finance, the role of skills, and inclusive society. Regarding the role of skills, I think one of the actors that could play a very important role, and this is said by industry association, is the university, because at the moment we need programs that link more and more industry with the university. This could really help in fostering the skills that we need in our technology startups in the bioeconomy area, but even in more advanced company. And the other one are business development skills, because you talk about business model, but to apply business model, you need business development skills. And this is one of the lack of the professions that we have here, especially in Italy, but I can enlarge at European level.
Oops. Thank you. And now Michael, please.
Okay. Of course, if we want to change the educational system, then the educational system, schools and universities have to carry the burden. That's sure. I mean, what we have to do is, of course, that we start with what we have. We have good, solid, disciplinary curricula, and we have to open them up to include other ideas, other disciplines, in order to be more adapted to the needs of the bioeconomy. This is the first step, but we also need new curricula. We also need new types of educational curricula that are directly dealing with the issues of a bioeconomy. We need people who actually operate and design biorefineries. We need people that are actually operating our value chains, organizing them on the regional scale, things like that. So there is, of course, a need to change in the educational systems. We need to change our way to teach. We need to change our way to teach to include more problem-oriented learning. We need cooperation with industry. So a second level is, of course, industry. And industry has to engage in education, in cooperation with the educational systems. Stop complaining, start cooperating, I would say, to industry. And thirdly, of course, we have to have the frameworks. We have to have new networking frameworks. And I think there is a lot going on already. The European University Association, for instance, has initiated already one of these projects where we actually try to map what is out there to comply with the set plan, and then create those clusters of universities that then will actually provide dedicated workforce. So we need this kind of networking. We have another networking of the European Sustainable Energy Innovation Alliance that is currently creating biorefinery engineering template curricula, and also bioresource managers. So there is something out there, but we have to intensify that. And of course, we need the help of the European Union on that. And we have frameworks that are not really good for breaking what I would say the stratification. For instance, the universities are using the ECTS system, and vocational training is using the ECVET system. They are not comparable. So we can't reach over. So there must be a change in those frameworks. Thank you.
So, Arnold, what is the trade unions now saying this?
Yeah, if we want to develop and promote the bioeconomy successfully, So then I think we don't have to ask for one actor only. I think then we really have to take care that we have a common approach of all those who are really concerned, of all stakeholders. And I think we have already on European level, since 2009, the so-called high-level group agro-food, and followed up then by the high-level forum food chain, which is a good place from my point of view, including all the stakeholders and the European Commission, to take care of the challenges, this sector and the bioeconomy is facing. I think this is really a good example how we can really work also result-oriented, because this high-level group agro-food came up with 30 recommendations, and we are working now really to get this implemented. And if we talk about a renaissance of the industrial policy, also since a couple of years, and we very much welcome this, so then I think this concept has also to be brought to reality, and I think this forum can contribute to this. But I think we should also raise this question, maybe this is of interest for you as well, what can the trade unions do? What can the social partners do? Our social partner is Food Drink Europe. And last year we have carried out a joint project dealing mainly with two questions. The first question is, which kind of skills do we need? Not only tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, but in 10 years or 15 years from now. So this was one of the questions we were raising, and I have to say that I'm very much impressed by the outcome of this working party on human capital, which was presented this morning, and I think we really can benefit from these discussions and outcome. The second question, and this is what I was already raising, is the question, how can we make this sector more attractive? So, and this is not only a question, or not first of all, a question of public relation. It's a question of real improvement of working conditions, of quality jobs. And it's not only about salaries, it's not only about jobs, but it's about, this is what we learned with this project, about a professional career. It's not enough to offer a job today, it's more important really to offer a professional career, lifelong learning, reconciliation between of family and job. This is more and more important if you really want to attract qualified staff. You need this, you have to invest invest in training, but I think this is also interesting. And this is one of the outcomes of our joint project as well, so that it would be a mistake to focus training and lifelong learning only on scientists, only on the higher qualified staff. So what we learned from our project as well, and this is one of the 23 recommendations of our joint projects with Food Drink Europe, is so that we really have to train and qualify all the staff, the whole staff in our companies. I think this is important.
Thank you. Let's hear now the position of policymaker with Mads Wolf.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I do believe that we need to involve many more actors in both the public and private sectors. If we insist, which I do, on the potential of the bioeconomy to foster local, rural, or coastal sustainable development, then we need to gather actors from a multi-level governance perspective, from the EU level to the macro-regional level, national level, regional level, and local level. The challenge in all parts of Europe with regard to the bioeconomy is the same, to secure a sustainable management of our biological resources. But of course, the implementation has to be, will not be the same in different parts of Europe, and we have to take that into consideration. Talking about actors from the private sector, it's more or less the same. We need to involve big trans-European companies, as well as the small local companies, and of course, all those in between. The potential is all over. Finally, I think we do have another challenge in engaging the civil society. The bioeconomy is not a quick fix of technological solutions, it's about societal changes. Therefore, the bioeconomy also needs to have a precise focus on what the bioeconomy offers of new solutions for local value creation. And therefore, also as a reflection, what Roger van der Sande said earlier this morning about the regions as a driver for bioeconomy, I'm absolutely sure that that goes for several regions in Europe, but for most parts of Europe, it doesn't work that way. So I think we have to rephrase the famous quote from Kennedy. Don't ask what the regions can do for the bioeconomy. Ask what the bioeconomy can do for fostering local, rural, coastal economic development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we go to the last question. I would like to ask you to be really to the point, because here we're talking about what is the most important new idea that you have heard during this conference, and then we will give the floor. I see a lot of maybe potential questions, so we will need to then have time to questions and replies. So again, starting from you, Maya.
It was really interesting to hear about good examples, and that is always important because that is inspiring. And I think for everyone, the first day presentation was really inspiring. This thinking out of the box. That's what we need. And in this conference, I think it's really useful to have such conference and bring together all stakeholders. And from all these 1.5 day discussions, it was a lot of ideas and dialogues between. And for every sector, it's important to have this networking and such conference. The best thing is that such conference bringing together all stakeholders. And I would just only recommend maybe in next years to have a little bit more representatives also from the primary sector for biomass suppliers, from forestry and agriculture sector. It's a little bit hard if I'm alone representing this this sector. It is a lot of good ideas, and I really hope that the outcome of the conference will be also more information and communication with society. It's good to have this network, good to have to share ideas, but we need also the open our pool and give these ideas also to other society. It is important for the sector at this moment to develop, because in Europe still the bioeconomy, it's a new term.
Thank you. I'd like to change the order now. Go back to you, Harald. See, surprising you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, I was partly attending one of the last sessions dealing insbesondere with the bioeconomy or promoting bioeconomy in Central and Eastern Europe. And I think this is really a very important issue, because what we are witnessing in the European Union is still so that the socio-economic standards are very different, and we have big gaps. And what we are also witnessing is that there is a deindustrialization development in many regional areas, and that is why I think bioeconomy is so important, because bioeconomy can create new jobs in rural areas. So this is very important. We as Trade Union Federation, we are not only focusing on new member states, but also on, Southeast Europe now, more and more. A very difficult region, as you know, politically difficult, not stable. Political stability, as you know, is also a question of social security. And that is why it's of utmost importance for us as well that this regions, which is now, also now the new candidate countries, has also a positive socio-economic perspective. And I think the food and agriculture sector and the bioeconomy can play a very important role. Let me just finalize with one point. Maybe you were also witnessed this over the last years, so that politicians were, well, talking about agriculture as a dying sector. And what we are quite often afraid of is that the agriculture sector, the European agriculture sector, is sacrificed in international trade negotiations for the benefit of the service sector or the finances sector. So, and that is why I think it's important for me that this conference here showed how important a sustainable agriculture is for the future as well. And this is encouraging also for an organization like the trade unions who really take care of more and better jobs.
Thank you. Thank you. And I also would like to recommend to be brief because, again, I want to give time for the floor. So here, back to Bats, and then we move on.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to applaud the organizers. I think this conference has been a very big success. I participated also in Copenhagen and Dublin, but this one, I think we have moved very much, and that is very positive. So applaud for the organizers. I think the most important things that I have, the most important thing from this conference also goes back to the organizer, and I have it here in my pocket, the pen. Have you seen it? Take a look at it. From sectors to system, from concept to reality. I think that's something to remember. Keep it in your pocket. Use it every day. Read this small sentence. I think that's very important, very, very clever of the organizers. Inspiration, I think as always, Lene Lange is a great source of inspiration, but since I know her very well and I know that I always get inspired when I talk to her, I will instead promote Günther Pauli. I think he was excellent. I think he had this kind of punk movement idea, you don't have a chance, take it. Just do it, go out there. I think that is the most important thing that we can do. Don't wait. We can do it. We have a responsibility, all of us. That is the most important things from today and yesterday. Thank you.
30 seconds. And I participated to the panel yesterday regarding finance. And so we are talking about the economy of the bioeconomy. Okay? And so where the money come from? I think that interesting idea was discussed yesterday about how to create a value chain of financing institution, banks, venture capital, risk capital that can lead these financial actors to invest in the bioeconomy instead of other sectors that were more traditional, even healthcare, biotechnology. Okay.
And finally, Michael.
Okay. I'm a 30-year veteran of utilization of renewable resources, and this is the first conference I go out and have the feeling that there is a consensus that the bioeconomy is really a game changer in Europe. This is the one. The second, I really like that the role of regions has come up here as a very important thing, and that is very good. So perfect conference. Thank you.
Thank you for all those enthusiastic participation as well. And now I've gone back to the first questions, and I will pick up some more. Please introduce yourself and say to whom you're addressing.
Okay. My name is Karin Börsting.
Micro, if you have... should be a microphone for you.
Yes.
Excellent.
My name is Karin Börsting. I'm Deputy Director Biobased Economy for the Dutch government. And I've a comment on this, the talk of Michael. I very much agree that we have a big effort to make for education our people. And I have a pleasant announcement that the University of Delft is starting the first massive online course on bio-based economy, about technology for bio-based products, on the 27th of this month. And it's open for free application, and it's very interesting to see and what happens. And already 5,000 people have worldwide inscribed for this course. So it's good news, and we have to work hard on this.
We collect some other questions, and then we may have wide reply. So who's willing to ask a question, comment? It's your chance. Dr. Paterman, please.
Well, thank you very much, and I associate my private thanks also to everybody. I want to give you one remark with respect to what is the most important part of this conference. And for me, it was the very tiny phrase of the Commissioner that out of the 28 member states, 16 have registered bioeconomy among their priorities within the discussions of the structural funds in their national plans. My question to the Commission is, in what way are we going to accompany this movement? Because we now have reached a new dimension. It is no more Horizon 2020. You can't say forget the 4 billion, just the contrary. But there will be much more money, much more potentials, much more wider application also into the skills area. There will be the regions in which the bioeconomy will fly within the structural funds applications. So that is a wonderful opportunity. And I see here the next step in which we now really need a good plan with the help of the Commission, with the help of the member states, with the help of the regions, because the potentials will be immense because of this multifaceted content of this simple phrase, 16 out of 20 have bioeconomy in their national plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? No, I don't see any hands. So maybe you like to comment, starting from you, Michael.
Okay, thank you very much for the intervention from our colleague from the University of Delft. I think that is one of the starting points. What we have to do is that we have to coordinate throughout Europe, if really to find out the right platforms for this cooperation on this massive online courses. This is one. And we have to really, I would say, join forces, not only on the university level, but also on the level of vocational training and also on the level of training, I would say, in schools. We have to raise the awareness for bioeconomy in all levels. And to Dr. Paterman, perfect. And how do we bring the other half of the European Union on board? Because you're right. We are at, I would say, the point where we have a critical mass. And now we have to think about how to operate with this critical mass. And that will be up to the European Commission. And I think that is one of the major things that they have to deal with.
At this stage, if there are any really key final messages before I can close this session, please.
Just a short one. I think these two interventions are very precise, but I would like to add one issue to both the educational part and the structural fund parts, because they are much more than education and funding. It's about engaging civil society. So we must look at those instruments as not as just providing education and funds, but as providing engagement in civil society.
Thank you. Mayra, you want to?
Yeah, and I would just add that it's really feeling that we are going to the next step on the development of the bioeconomy. But once more, I like to stress that it is important to have good coordination in EU and in regional level, because we don't like to appear after a few years in the situation when the big investment projects are not coordinated between countries, and result could be that it's not enough biomass, and that we would like to escape from such situation. That's why coordination, it's a key word.
Anyone else who likes to come in?
Well, not much to add. Maybe just the information that we are following up the project with Food Drink Europe I was talking about, in order really to make the whole sector more attractive. So, and really to get more qualified staff for the sector. So also, well, according to the slogan, from concept to reality.
Okay, I think that I have 3 minutes left for me, maybe, just to ramp up this very important hour we spent together with the panelists. It shows that there is a need of collegiality, so I would not only call on one institution, but there is a need to see this, in a collegial way, and also the work of the member states, the work of the region. I think that the challenge, and again, these aspects that we have debated, you see that are not exclusively dealing with research and development, although the bioeconomy strategy is on research and development that has been put forward. But there are aspects that we need to take into consideration. As you mentioned, what is the role of society in there? How is this the acceptance? But the acceptance, it comes at different levels. The acceptance of new business models. I mean, there is a way of looking at these new business models out of our windows and see how my neighbor would first take the step. And if it works, I may do it. Now, this is kind of, let's say, risk-taking problem that we might have in Europe. And I'm just quoting de Tocqueville, who was comparing the aspects here of risk-taking in Europe and in the US. And he was clean, saying that, those coming from America were taking sailing even with stormy weather. But the Europeans, instead, they were first finding shelters and wait that, the storm would have gone through. So I think that, this is a lesson to learn. There is a need to take risks. We need, as a public hand, to help this de-risking. But I hear also the point, how do we make sure that, this is a bottom-up exercise with the regions, with the localities, because at the end we need to create jobs, we need to have certainties when we make the investments. And okay, the skills are important, but I see that there is, and we have had also this announcement, but there are all the other master courses also in Europe providing support for the skills. But there is a long way to Tipperary. And I think that we need to look at this closely. But, nevertheless, this strategy that, also the new Commission is putting forward, competitiveness, more jobs. I think that we're all here committed. And I can close with this commitment and pass over to Katia Bastioli, who's been, again, thanks for organizing and putting this conference together with Fabio and all the others. And my colleagues as well from the European Commission. And I've been, again, delighted to be here in Turin. I'm an Italian. And, again, it's a chance to have some return home. So it's a pleasure. Thank you.
You are welcome to the last section of the third European Bioeconomy Stakeholders Conference at Turin. My name is Katia Bastioli. I am one of the members of the advisory board, and I'm very pleased and very honored to chair the closing section of this bioeconomy conference. I feel, and I heard also the previous panel, that the conference has given a key contribution for a better understanding of the specificities of bioeconomy for Europe, and the two concepts that which have been selected for the conference, from sectors to systems and from concepts to reality, have been very well developed. And I have to say that also the multidimensional and interconnected nature of bioeconomy have been really deepened. And also it was possible to see how the technological development of bio-based technologies and bio-based products are achieved a very good level of development. But it was also, it emerged also the regional dimension of the bioeconomy, with the need to give a value to the diversities of regions, and another element which emerged very strongly is the cultural gap we have. Perhaps this is the real point, a mindset which is organized on an old model, and we need to think in a different way and to have an open mind to this new multi-dimensional system. And I have to say that it's so important in this respect, the civil society, which is a key point for bioeconomy. So the message from the conference is that really bioeconomy can be considered as a fantastic opportunity for growth, for jobs. I heard this morning from a sum up of the educational capital part that we can imagine millions of jobs, and we all share this. So I feel that it's so important at this moment to have a political agenda which can permit us, working with the European Union member states, to have a program which can really give the tools in order to make the best in terms of efficiency of resources, to maximize the educational capacities, to have the greatest protection of environment, to multiply the opportunities. So on this basis, I have the pleasure and the honor to have here today representatives of the political institutional world at member states level and at European level. So I feel that we can really understand from their perspective what we can go, what we can do more from now on. So I will leave the floor to the diplomatic advisor of the Ministry of Food, Agriculture and Forest of Italy, Andrea Silvestri, for this initial speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bastioli. First of all, on behalf of Minister Martina, who had to stay in Rome for other institutional commitments, I would like to thank the organizers, European Commission, and the colleagues of Ministry of Education, University and Research for having involved us in this conference. The Ministry of Agricultural, Food and Forestry Policies. As you said, of course, bioeconomy is based on the interconnection between research, industry and agriculture, but for sure it starts from the primary sector, from agriculture. So that's why we are very interested and very eager to develop and to participate to this conference. What is the point, the challenge, the current challenge of today? I think that as was also stressed in the title of this conference, the challenge is how to integrate a concept that is already well defined into policies and this at European level, domestic level, a regional and local level, also involving firms, citizens, stakeholders. So what have we done in this regard at our level in order to move from a theoretical concept to an applied bioeconomy? Let me say that as ministry we already moved in the right direction. Of course there is still to do, but we've done many things. Firstly, at European level, we participated very actively to many programs within the European space for research. Thinking to Euronet, JPI, FACES, we are active members of the Standing Committee on Research on Agriculture. Then, as a presidency also, 2 weeks ago in Milan, we gathered the ministers of agriculture of the 28 member countries for an informal meeting, and this meeting was focused on food security. And this theme is very closely linked to bioeconomy. On Monday in Luxembourg, we will have another meeting and we will have a debate on the midterm revision of the 2020 strategy. And this will represent the contribution of the agricultural world to this debate, to this revision. But also at national level, within our strategic plan for innovation and research in agriculture, food and forestry, we are putting a specific section devoted to the sustainable use of resources for agriculture, industrial purposes. It has bioeconomy in this sense. This will be a very important instrument because it will be the reference program for action at central but also at regional level. Looking forward to the next programming 2014-2020, we are very interested in the European Innovation Partnership, which will enable the realization of joint and coordinated actions at central local levels to provide undertakings, namely farms, with paths of innovation, trying to facilitate, to ease the cooperation between all the various actors of the food chain. We will also have, we think that this is the important contribution of the to today's. There are a lot of innovation, especially in Italy. The conditions are gathered for a leap forward in this respect. The last point I would like to mention is regarding the implementation of smart specialization. We will have to try to use to design all the possible instruments, all the possible resources coming from regional funds, but also the reformed CAP and Horizon 2020. Then I would like to focus on the post-Turin, what is beyond us. I would like to draw your attention, it has already been done during one of the last panels, to an event that will soon bring millions of visitors to Italy, namely to Milan, not far away from here, just 1 hour, next year even less. I'm referring to the Universal Exposition that will take place in Milan from October. We had 2 very intense days of conference here, but we think that this would be, in a sense, a 6 months conference. From May to October, we will have 147 countries, international organizations, but also civil society, business. This will be a tremendous opportunity, most suitable place, maybe where you can discuss and also promote awareness on bioeconomy. As you all know, the theme of Expo 2015 is feeding the planet energy for life. Energy for life. So basically, the issues on which Expo will focus are the same, are consistent and in synergy with also the guidelines of the Commission communication. Will we be able to ensure enough food to a growing population? 9 billion in 2050. So the issue of food security. Still, there are more than 800 people suffering of hunger. Can be paradoxical, but this figure represents a progress. But still, it's a huge challenge that we have to face, and especially considering that the population is growing. There is also the question of water and energy, and all of these questions are interlinked and have also relevant geopolitical aspect. Then, as I said, the question of natural resources, will we be able to leave an asset of natural resources, the asset we had as a legacy to the next generation, and then in turn to the generation to come. At the same time, the issue of biodiversity, how to maintain biodiversity vis-à-vis its increasing reduction. We have to reconcile all this. And finally, the concept of nutrition. In November in Rome, there will be the second International Conference on Nutrition. And there the challenge is not just a problem of quantity or quality, safety of nutritional aspect, but also there is a point that has been raised during this conference. There are the cultural aspect of nutrition. How we link, how can we ensure this right to food also with the territorial tradition and history. Then let me conclude. I would like to conclude by recalling that Expo will begin during the Latvian presidency. As you know, probably after the Lisbon Treaty, we have to co-share, in a sense, our presidency between a trio of presidency. So it will be Italy, Latvia, Luxembourg. And we are already cooperating, and we will be cooperating more intensively in the next months. We are sure that we will find the way to share the best operational ways of promoting biodiversity during Expo. It will be not only an Italian event, but a European event and a global event. So, arrivederci a Milano. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you for your interesting speech, and I would say that Expo is really a very important moment for all of us. So bioeconomy will have a good appointment there. I'm now pleased to give the floor to the Distinguished Minister of Education and Science, Ina Druviete of Latvia. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your intervention.
Honorable Madam Chair, dear participants of the conference, colleagues, it's a great honor for me to welcome you in Latvia during our next presidency. Yes, Latvia is one out of the 16 countries which consider bioeconomy one of its priorities during our next presidency and forthcoming years. We know that not only our country, not only Europe, but all world face different challenges, food security, renewable raw materials and energy from biomass, the conservation of biological diversity, environmental protection, and so on and so on. And meeting these challenges will require not only great social, economic, and political effort, but also intense research efforts and new approaches to research and innovation. Bioeconomy has the potential for growth and employment, indeed, but in order to achieve this, we have to coordinate and to develop the business and scientific resources and to build the capacity in the bioeconomy field. What we are doing in Latvia and what we would recommend for the other countries. We consider that knowledge-based bioeconomy is one of the 5 priority areas for development of our country, where there is a need to develop a knowledge base and human capital in areas where we have a comparative advantage and which are important for the economic transformation process. For this region, we have created Bioeconomy Research Strategic Association of the bioeconomic industries, let's say primary agriculture, food, fisheries, forestry and timber sector in the regional and international scale. We try to increase intellectual capital for developing of new internationally competitive products and innovative production techniques. This is going to have contribution to the EU and national strategic development goals. We have the keywords: smart specialization. What does it mean? It means that we are going to focus our economic development efforts and investments on each region's relative strengths, exploiting its research opportunities and emerging trends. And we are trying to take actions to boost our economic growth. It means very close contacts between academia and industry to develop innovative strategies, to invest in research, to use the basis of our structural funds for investments in research and development. What can we do more? And what can we do at the level of each member state and at the level of EU as a whole? First of all, we have to develop education, not only at university level, but also at the kindergarten level, in order to reach the awareness about the possibilities of bioeconomy, about healthy lifestyles, about the necessity to invest in technologies and innovative materials and processes. We need so-called bottom-up approach to raise societal awareness and to develop new business models, not only in capitals but also in rural areas, create synergies and collaboration among all members of the entire value chain. We are aware that in close partnership with stakeholders, using national and international experts, in close partnership with businesses, governments and municipalities, we could draft European strategies for development of bioeconomy. What would we need for this? First of all, we have to focus on well-being of people and strengths of our countries and the European Union as a whole. We have to appreciate the role of local governments. We have to cooperate between sectors to involve all ministries, ministries of agriculture, ministries of economy, and ministries of education and research, last but not least. We have to develop public-private partnership, and we have to move from competition to cooperation. Cooperation, no, is the key word for our development. We have to cooperate within sectors and between sectors. We have to cooperate between countries and regions, and we have to avoid discontinuity, implementation after strategy adoption. And we are moving forward a common strategy in the member states and in the European Union as a whole. And last but not least, we have to raise public awareness about healthy lifestyles, about these economic, environmental, social, and individual benefits from developed bioeconomies, and we have to coordinate our policies. I am very grateful to the organizers of this conference. It's a great contribution to our common pool of knowledge. We all became smarter, more informed, aware about each other's experience during these two days, and you all are welcome to Latvia to continue this process of development, to put forward more challenging goals for our future cooperation for development of very perspective branch of economy, bioeconomy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister De Vette. I'm very impressed by the view and you mentioned the cooperation and coordination among the different ministers. This is, I feel, a great thing to consider the holistic approach of bioeconomy, which is one of the most important concepts which came out from this conference. Now I will pass to the Director of Bioeconomy Sector of DG Research and Innovation, Dr. John Bell, and I feel that he will give us what Europe can do in this direction.
Grazie. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Minister De Vette, Chairman Katia Bastioli, and representatives of the Ministry of Agriculture and colleagues. I'm glad to hear that you were so enthusiastic to hear what I have to say. This is a social science experiment. As an Irish person, will always find a way out in the situation. It is. I don't know how you're feeling at this point, but it's a little bit like being at the end of a cascade of value adding upon value adding. So there is so much that we've had to listen to from so many different sides. I think we owe a great debt of thanks to the presidency, to Italy, Minister Giannini, Minister Martina, Mr. Silvestri, and I think particularly to Katia Bastioli and to Professor Fabio Fava, who I think at the beginning of the process had a lot of biomass that they needed to actually convert into the kind of wealth of value-added intelligence and insight that we have today. So I would like on behalf of the European Commission and our colleagues to say thank you to you all. It has been a heroic but also a very successful approach. And we look forward, of course, to working closely with Latvia and Minister De Vette and her colleagues. And also, I'd like to thank our Commission colleagues from a number of different services. The point the Minister was making, this is an interdisciplinary approach. It is a systemic change, and systemic changes are difficult to organise when we tend to work in silos. So maybe the silos have to become a source of administrative fermentation as well as chemical fermentation. And we look forward to working closely with some of the other institutions. I was listening to the point that Antonio made earlier about collegiality. I think if we're going to move from the specifics of this community into actually affecting change, This will be a key issue for us, both at EU level and indeed globally. I noticed that we have some of our colleagues here from the KBBE Global Forum and our colleagues from the JPI. They will be important. Commissioner Geoghegan-Quinn was actually very taken by the progress that had been made, even looking at the agenda, looking at the people who are here, looking where we are 2 years down the road. And her feeling is very much that it's time to catalyse the investment we've made in the ideas and really to begin to focus on the specific actions that need to happen next at a moment of change. We're dealing with a moment of administrative change in the EU and in many member states. I think it was very striking throughout the presentations. What you would call our own diversity is something which has come out very strikingly. I think you can see it actually on the panel. You know, whether you're coming from Latvia in the northern part of Europe, or Italy here in the central and southern part of Europe, or if you're from the island people like myself, how you would actually, in the Atlantic part of Europe, how you actually start to engage with the bioeconomy and how you start to think about it and source your biomass are very specific. So this is a very strong message that has come through to the Commissioner and to ourselves. We've had substantive contributions that have taken a great deal of time and effort to prepare. I'd like to thank you for that. I'd like to thank in particular the contributions from our Standing Committee on Agricultural Research, the SCAR, and for our bioeconomy panel presentations. I think Doretta Corbet and Joanna Dupont and Anita Weigering have coordinated a great deal of structured work, and to the other contributors who were both informative and in some cases really inspirational. I have 5 basic key messages. I wanted to start off with a picture of George Clooney, simply as a diversion. But I understand you're only allowed to take photographs of him in another region of Italy, so you'll just have to suffice with the title. My 5 key messages coming out of this process and listening to the events of the last couple of days are these. The bioeconomy is a reality in Europe, but the question is it going to become a systemic reality? If we're going to systematize, we need to legitimize. We need to move on to making the business case, setting out the business model, and fixing the agenda with the institutions that are now in a process of change. For those of us involved in the bioeconomy policy, it's now a time for specifics. And my 5th point being, this is now the point of needing intelligent investment, and that means de-risking the essentials and not investing in the inevitable. So the first title here, The Perfect Storm, really is to pull together some of what you've been talking about and what the reality is for people who are trying to make very difficult decisions. In Europe, we've been through the largest single crisis in 2 generations. We're not out of it yet. We need about 3% growth every year just to get this debt burden off our backs. Where is that going to come from? We face remarkable challenges. The IPCC report recently, we are in a different phase. We are facing issues of mitigation and adaptation, and probably more adaptation than mitigation at this stage. We know it's going to hit our food sector, our food chains first, and as many people have pointed out this morning, that will have a fundamental effect both on prices and on the way citizens and people live, and at a very fundamental level. We know in Europe, with our 24 million unemployed young people and the level of unemployment, the very first priority we have is to get people back to work and into meaningful forms of work in different parts of our economy. And yet we're facing a geopolitical challenge in terms of energy security and everything that goes along with that. So in all of this, we are facing the perfect storm. And that is why we need to do something which actually Europe has been very good at doing. We need to change the context. Jean Monnet, who founded basically the European Union, and his life is worth reading, from cognac salesman to somebody who reframed the way the oldest continent works and thinks. He said, when you have a set of insuperable problems and positions, you must change the context. So that's what we're doing here. We agree on that's what we're doing. The question is, how are we actually going to go about doing it? What you will know from the papers and the press, there's a new administration starting off in Brussels. The Parliament is newly elected. the Juncker Commission, it appears, is about to be authorised and approved to function by the Parliament, and they will have a very focused agenda, because those of us who have been living close to the heart of this crisis know that we will not get a second chance in terms of the social and political sustainability of Europe and our societies and economies if we don't actually shift to new forms and solutions. So President-elect Juncker's Commission will be very focused on a few things. It will be very focused on what they call the industrial renaissance, and there's no better place to talk about that than here. And I mean also in terms of bringing new future engines and motors of growth to what we understand to be industry. They will bring a very radical focus in terms of what can be prioritised, and they will do everything possible to mobilise investment and to simplify the environment to make sure the framework conditions are there. You may also have seen that Commissioner Maura Geoghegan-Quinn's successor, Commissioner-elect Carlos Moedas, has focused in two key ways in his presentation to the Parliament on two key words. One of them is delivery. He said, deliver, deliver, deliver. We have the instruments, we have the financing, we have the policies, we have the networks, now it's the time to deliver. And this is a man who started off life as an engineer and was involved in investment, and he knows that the impacts will be what will define what happens next. The other aspect he mentioned, which has come very strongly out of our conference, is the connection with regions and actually bringing the innovation economy down to earth. So I think one of the great things about Europe, you can see Europe in many ways, but one of the things we are as Europe, and Europe is the people that create it, it is a strategic change management organisation. And the question now is, how do we make the bioeconomy a reality in Europe? Not in the way in which we're talking about. We have a consensus, we have policies and strategies and instruments and money, and everybody in the room, I think there's an intellectual consensus that it has to be a reality in Europe. But to move from being a sector to a system, to become a systemic reality in Europe, are we involved in a niche initiative here? Or is this a paradigmatic shift that people have been talking about? In investment terms, are we involved in a research action, a pilot, a demo, or are we scaling up to something which is economically viable? Or to use a more local analogy, are we interested in building something here for Formula One, or are we building Fiat? In due deference to where we're sitting. It is both, but I think those who want to see Fiats and those who want to be employed in large numbers would like to see both. So what do we need to do to shift to become a systemic change, and how are we going to do that? So this phrase, legitimise to systematise, is just probably too many bullet points I've seen, so everything has to start to rhyme. We need to embed what we're talking about here in the levels of decision-making where things happen. We need to embed what we're talking about here for the people who decide at regional level, at national level, in the European Parliament, in the Member States, in the Committee of the Regions, in the boardrooms, in the investment houses, that what we're doing is legitimate and systemic and valuable. And that means also going, and this has been very strongly coming out, we need those who will be part of this bioeconomy to be the witnesses for this change. When I hear people from the farming community or the trade unions or the education sector saying this has to happen, then my heart lifts, because then I think the change is actually something which could be socially, economically sustainable. And I think this is the key part of the next part of the process. To legitimise, to systematise, we need to connect. Making the business case and setting the agenda. Again, going to the new Commission, going to the European Parliament, going to the Member States who have scarce resources and have a European semester machine on their back, talking about, do you invest here, do you invest there, how do you deal with the tiny margins of growth, how do you organise your systems, how do you reform, and so forth. The new business models that have been spoken about. We need to start specifying the benefits and the impacts. We need to start getting specific. We need to identify the added value of the interventions. And the added value, of course, it can be social and environmental, but it also has to be economic as well as financial. We need to confirm the urgency of this systemic change. We need to demonstrate the feasibility of what we're talking about. I thought Gunther Pauli's presentation was particularly powerful because he did show and tell. It's so much more effective if you can actually demonstrate, show examples of what you mean by the bioeconomy in action, investment making an impact, and so forth. Critically, we need to connect to regional priorities in particular. Minister Driviete was talking about smart specialization. We have vast amounts of money available and huge instruments, but how do we know how to get them to actually connect and be applied in an intelligent way and in a way which is effective and specific to the local and regional bioeconomies that we're talking about? And they need to be anchored in all of the national economic strategies, not simply a number out of the 28 member states. You will see that the member states that have bioeconomy strategies tend to be actually making progress in terms of growth and competitiveness. And we need to start prioritizing amongst all of the framework conditions that have been presented to us in many of the reports. We need to identify the ones which really are the enablers and the game changers. I was in the United States a week or so ago, and it was very striking why people invest there. You know, the clarity, the regulatory predictability, the policy stability, the investment conditions, the rules of the game are very, very clear. So for our investors, for our authorities, for the people looking at this, what is it that is most important that we start off with? There needs to be regulatory stability, but which regulations and standards? Policy predictability. The investment conditions need to be clear. We need to get the key reforms in early. For example, we were told this morning again, and yesterday afternoon I was listening to one of the sessions, you know, the possibility in terms of skills and opportunities and jobs. But you need to sequence some of these things as a long lead time. And we need to mobilize the different agents of change, and finally to optimize the instruments. And optimizing the instruments is quite a challenge. We have Horizon 2020 and the Common Agricultural Policy and Rural Development Funds, the Social Fund, the Structural Funds, the Investment Bank, the Innovation Partnership, and we have our colleagues in the EIT, and you can multiply that at national and regional level. So we need to find a way of optimizing the instruments and making it user-friendly for people who want to make these changes happen. And so for the bioeconomy, it's time for specifics. I think the strategy has proved its worth and the action plan is under development. I think it's clear from what people are saying here that navigation now has to be into more specific areas to move into actually building the economy. And in doing that, we need to look and listen to some of the things that we've been hearing about in the last couple of days. So how do we actually contextualize or address the what was called, I think, variable geometry that you have in terms of how there are different bioeconomies. I talked about the regulatory aspects. How do we connect up the different policy areas where there's a great deal that's happening, but that it could be so much more effective if it was brought together? Between agriculture, food, the marine industry. We're doing it in the value chains. Can we do it in the policies? Can we do it between the instruments? Can we do it between the different sectors? I'm sure we can. Forestry, a similar case. Can we bring the bioeconomy together on land and sea, which was another point that was forcibly made yesterday? How can we even think about biomass supply? We haven't looked at 3/4 of the planet. We all need to become amphibious, as I'm learning in my new job. How do we connect to challenges? This is how you motivate change, particularly at the political level. People have talked about food security, blue growth, health, industrial technologies and infrastructures and so forth. How do we connect the biomass and the bioeconomy issues into the challenges that we're working on in an orderly way? And this, we will start doing this in Horizon 2020. The refit on skills we've all discussed in detail. There's many issues there. Biomass supply. It has come out again and again and again. And there's a lot that will be discussed in the European Commission soon. But again, how the issue of biomass supply is framed will dictate whether in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time we're in another ILUC kind of situation, or we find we've solved one problem, but we've created another problem. So we need an integrated approach to biomass supply, and it's something that's on the desk of the European Commission as we speak. And then the alignment of efforts, research efforts, innovation efforts. We have our joint programming initiatives who've been present here, member states who have significant funding available, our global partners. There's a lot that we can do if we can align. And I've mentioned mobilizing social engagement and social action, which is the condition. I think Minister Vela yesterday morning I think was very striking. Somebody coming from Spain, where there is a better consensus around these issues, pointing to the fact we don't get the social conditions out now, we lose the debate before we started. I think Doretta was telling me in the newspapers in the Netherlands this morning already, you have the civil society mobilising in very black and white terms, biomass equals problems for the food supply and so forth. So we need to engage intelligently and quickly. And lastly, on policy time for specifics, do we need to get a high-level, game-changing dynamic moving at EU level? Sometimes this can be helpful. If we could find the right voices at the highest level to say, this is not a niche issue, this is a systemic issue, it brings together many of the agendas that we're talking about, and we need the following list of things done to move them forward. So whether we need high-level commitment and mobilisation to do that. And lastly, and those of you who are hungry, you'll be glad to hear this point will only take 15 minutes. Kidding. Investing to de-risk. One of the worst things when you're going around is to see people doing the right things for the wrong reasons, or using the right resources in a way which is not optimizing resources. There is a risk that in our urgency to get something done, we invest in the inevitable. We need to use the investment resources that we have to de-risk what wouldn't happen if there wasn't public investment. That's what the EU and the public sector is there to do. And with all due respect to my colleagues in the private sector, we will sometimes take the risks that nobody else would take. That's part of the reason why we have public policy. So how we intervene and the logic of our intervention has to be very much geared to what would not have happened otherwise. And this is going to require a lot of effort. And in that, whether we look at the financial instruments that are now available in Horizon 2020, and there's a vast array, risk instruments, equity instruments, and so forth, or whether we look very importantly at the bio-based industries joint undertaking, which has had a very impressive launch. Again, it's one of the major deliverables of the strategy, which is up and running, it's been budgetized, it has a work program. You need to get involved, you need to become members if you're part of that sector, you need to get out and get involved in the work program, and you need to engage in the process of reflection and programming that is going on. Again, we need to use this to ensure that the EU investment of €1 billion is securing impacts and de-risking changes that would not otherwise have happened. And then, of course, we have the investments of our member states through the joint programming initiatives, the regional level, and what is likely to be a major investment package from the Commission and the Union next year, Juncker's and Mr. Katainen's investment package. So there's a few things to do. It would be very nice if we could also get the resources from the budgetary authority to do it, but we don't live in an ideal world. So we have to prioritise. And so with my colleagues who've been here and supporting and helping, we will really reflect carefully over what we've listened and seen and heard to. And we'll be briefing our Commissioner and the respective Commissioners who'll be involved in this process with a view to maybe prioritising some of these issues and building some partnerships with current and future presidencies, leading probably right through to from the Latvian to the Dutch presidency, that we can actually make the next step forward in systematising this change. So to conclude, and you'll be glad to hear that Irish people do conclude eventually, it really is time to demonstrate and to deliver Europe's bioeconomies. It's time to show and tell at all levels. And for those of us who are, in the spirit of Gunter Pauli, who wonder about optimism, who wonder about innovation, remind ourselves again and again that the Europe that we've made is the most successful political innovation in history. And it's about people catalysing change. Because in the end, I guess hope was the original biofuel, sustainable biofuel, and it's hope that fuels history, and it's people that catalyse change. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for this comprehensive presentation of what we can do. And I think that I would like to thank all of you for the efforts, the energies, and the content of the conferences. I think that we can see that the success of this conference is because of all of you. So we thank you all for your presence. Now, I think that I would like to give the floor to Professor Fabio Fava for the last announcements, because I feel that he wants to thank all the team who worked for the conference. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for this.
Thank you very much, also for this very special session that is really what we need for concluding a conference like this. So thank you very much. And yes, first of all, a couple of announcements. You can continue working this afternoon if you wish. I want to recall you that we have 3 satellite events planned for this afternoon. One is organized by the Eranet platform. They will have the internal session at the Sala Einaudi from 2:30, 3 p.m. and up to 6 p.m. Then also the Bioeconomy Observatory will meet and it will present what they are doing to all of you in the afternoon, once again in the Sala Giolitti. And then finally we have an OECD meeting, OECD workshop on bioeconomy, bio-based industries, industrial biotechnology role, etc., etc. Always also in the afternoon in Sala Sella. So yes, we are approaching to the end of the conference. So distinguished Minister Drozved, distinguished Diplomatic Counselor Silvestri, distinguished Director Bell, Katia, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Italian Presidency and the European Commission, I wish to sincerely thank all the speakers, the session chairs, the rapporteurs, and all of you for your active, very, very qualified, motivated participation in this conference by making it successful. The exceptional technical contributions and the fresh ideas provided, the discussion, and most of all the atmosphere here at the conference make me believe that this event remarkably contributed to inspire and enable different and new actors and people to take further concrete actions for boosting bioeconomy in Europe. I wish to express the gratitude of the Italian Presidency to the European Commission, Torino Incontra, and the other support institutions for giving us the opportunity to organize this conference and to host it in the beautiful city of Turin. Katia Bastioli and I, she is the co-chair. She acted only at the end, but she formally co-chair of the session since the beginning. We split the roles, but she is the co-chair of this conference. Both wish to express our deep gratitude to the members of the advisory board and of the European Commission Task Force, who assisted us during the last months in the program implementation, designing first and then implementation later, for their excellent input, suggestions, and constant effective cooperation provided along all the 4, 5, 6 months that we work on this initiative. Then my most helpful thanks also on behalf of the Italian Presidency, of course also Katia, to the task force of the Ministry of Education, University Research, who took care to the management of the conference. Dr. Cellatore, her team, work a lot on this, Valentina Cardinale, Chiara Gliozzi, and many other young people who assisted us in this. Giulia Gregori and also Simone Maccaferri, who contributed a lot, flanked us in this action with a number of excellent inputs, constant cooperation. This is a personal thank. I wish to thank Katia. This is a personal but important that I want to share to all of you. I wish you to really thank her for all what she did for assisting us in this initiative, her passion, her enthusiasm, and energy. And then I would like to wish you good health and prosperous careers and a safe trip home. Thank you, and see you soon, the coming Stakeholder Bioeconomy Conference next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm at the hotel here. Do I bring my bag? Do I meet you here? Where do I meet
No,
you?
I'm my luggage are here.
Okay, I'll come back with my bags and I'll meet you at, I don't know how long it takes.
Well, I don't know, because I don't know where the hotel is located.
Oh no, my hotel is just